Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to today's live session, How to Sell and Manage in Uncertain Times. My name's Marcus Woodard. I'm the producer for today, and I'm coming to you live from sunny Charlotte, North Carolina. Just as a note, this presentation is being recorded, and we're going to send out an on-demand version later today, so be on the lookout for that. I'm going to go ahead and send this over to Craig to get started with intros. Craig, let's turn it over to you.
Thanks, Marcus. Yeah, good to be here with everybody. Thanks for spending some time with us on a Wednesday afternoon or wherever you are. Thank you. We're going to talk about how to sell and manage in uncertain times. And I know certain industries are getting hit harder than others, but I think we can all agree there is a fair bit of uncertainty out there. And that has changed the landscape for go-to-market teams, how we prioritize our time, our methodology, the way we train. So we're going to jump into it, and I'm joined by Andy Springer of Rain Group, and there's few better people to learn from who have their finger on the pulse and talking to so many leaders and CROs out there. So really excited to learn from you today, Andy.
Thanks, Craig. Great to be here. Hello, everyone, and look forward to spending some time together.
So we're going to go over why value is so critical to buyer outcomes. We're going to deep dive on conversation intelligence and talk about how that can be a tremendous tool for optimizing your value and the way you message, and then how we collaborate with buyers. The buying behaviors in B2B have really changed a lot, especially in the last 2 to 3 years since COVID. And we're going to dig into those changes and how we can modify the buying experience to reduce friction and drive better seller outcomes. To get us started, we first want to understand who our audience is, who we're speaking to. So if we could launch the first poll and just have people kind of identify their job functions so that Andy and I can tailor the presentation as best we can, depending on who we have out in the audience. It's always helpful.
People are chiming in now. Looks like 30, 40 people. We'll give it another 20 seconds or so.
And of course, want to encourage everybody to participate in the chat. Feel free to ask questions along the way as Andy and I go through the content. You don't need to save your questions for the end, but we will take time to answer questions at the end, time permitting.
All right, we got about 50 plus. So here we go. Here are the results.
Okay. So 33% individual contributors, 27% sales managers, 19% sales leaders, about 10% enablement and L&D, 10% other, just one marketer. So hello, fellow marketer. Thanks for being here. All right, that's helpful. Andy, you guys did some recent research on some of the top challenges and priorities. Let's take a look.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. Yeah, look, we asked 300 sales and enablement leaders about 17 different and common challenges. 5 of these rose to the top as the most challenging. And the top challenges we found include recruiting and hiring sales talent, selling in an uncertain economy, which seems to be very common no matter which part of the world we're operating in with our clients at the moment. Next was generating qualified sales ready leads, developing sales skills and sales managers. So not surprisingly, the top sales priorities are largely geared towards tackling the top challenges and revolve around the common themes of value, productivity, account growth, pipeline, and talent. Now, value, when we talk about it, around driving value, communicating value, offering valuable insights and ideas, convincing buyers of your value, all of these come forth in the research really strongly. Buyers used to be expected from sellers to be turning up and talking about products and services that were aligned to some sort of solution offering for them. It's really clear now that buyers are expecting sellers to give them strategic advice and drive value over and above their product in every touch. Let's discuss some of those key challenges. So the big one that we're seeing, not just that the research is telling us, but on the ground, we're seeing particularly in a lot of mid-market, a lot of enterprise selling organizations, sales cycles are lengthening. Now, our research shows 43% of sales and enablement leaders report that the sales cycle has increased, while only 16% are saying it's decreased. Now, that trend has serious implications for sellers, because as sales cycles lengthen, the number of buyers who decide to do nothing increases. So to compound matters, as the sales cycles lengthen, more decision makers are being introduced, just to overcomplicate things further. And 85% of sales and enablement leaders report that dealing with an increased number of decision makers in buying organizations is at least somewhat challenging. So this makes it more difficult for sellers to push deals forward and to close sales. More companies are losing, more selling organizations, let me be clear when I use that term, companies are losing to no decision. So another alarming trend is that more opportunities are being lost due to no decision, and 44% of leaders are saying the percentage of opportunities lost to no decision has not just increased, but we're seeing the decreasing factor slim even further. So what we want to do is provide you with what we're seeing in terms of not just research, but observations on the ground around what are those people who are winning, particularly in selling in uncertain economies, doing. And so here are some tips that we put together. We've shared these out in some of our communication recently, and we're just gonna focus on a few here today. We're particularly going to focus on number one, value. And I think this is what buyers are really crying out for, and sellers not just need to come to the party. They need to really figure out ways to over-deliver in that value space. The other is making sure that we're targeting, and we're getting much more specific in terms of who we're targeting. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that today, but I do want to mention that what we're seeing is those who are winning a lot, those who are seeing their sales cycles decrease, are getting really hyper-focused in terms of the prospects or the existing customers who they're targeting to drive new business from. And so the one thing I'd recommend to you in terms of that is to make sure you spend a lot of time, particularly for half the audience here who are sales leaders, spend a lot of time qualifying and being meticulous in terms of which opportunities you're choosing to pursue versus those that you are wasting time on. And the last thing we're going to look at today is collaborate with the buyer. Collaboration is a standout in terms of what we're seeing sellers who are winning in these uncertain times doing, and they're not just doing it in terms of manual, physical, or virtual collaboration. It's about high tech and it's about high touch. So what technology can we leverage throughout the sales cycle in order to ensure that we're collaborating with our buyer in the most effective ways, even when we're not physically present with them? So let's have a look. I just want to jump in and share with you our thoughts in terms of value. It's become more important than ever. It is omnipresent. It's almost a principle in terms of what sellers must be doing today. And so we have developed here, what you're seeing on our screen here is our top performing seller model. And what we know of top performing sales organizations is that they figured out and they work to develop skills systematically inside their sales organization. And an early step in the process to build a sales competency model to understand your skills is what your sellers need. So we really need to define in terms of what are those key areas of gap that we have in terms of our sellers around their capability, and then we use this model to guide and see not just through gap identification, but also the areas that we need to develop into or stay focused in order to win consistently in any economy, but particularly during these uncertain times. What you'll see is at the center of that model is value. Sellers need to not just establish value in the minds of the buyer, they need to constantly be reconnecting with that value throughout the sales process in order to advance opportunities now more than ever. So let's have a look at what value looks like to us. And we have a really simple model that I just want to bring up. And for those of you who have seen it, I want to remind you of it. For those of you who are seeing it for the first time, I want you to pay close attention. It is simple for a reason. We've done all the hard work, and we have 3 legs to the stool. It's a very simple way of us explaining it to you. But there's 3 legs to the stool. There's 3 ingredients that make up really compelling value propositions for your sellers. It's resonate, it's differentiate, substantiate. And in order to remind us around how we deliver that, there's 4 questions that sellers need to ask and make sure that they have answered correctly in order to create really compelling value propositions. That first question in terms of resonate is, why should the buyer act? Now, that's a really simple question to ask, but what we often find is a lot of sellers, when they're seeking to answer that question, really look at transactional need in terms of the buyer. And when we're talking about value, it's well beyond transactional need. It's not just connecting what's the product or service that can realize that solution for me and I should do something about it. It's how does what you are positioning as a solution actually connect to all of the other business outcomes that we're trying to achieve with inside our buyer's organization. And then it's like, well, once we've established that and we have a really clear understanding of why a buyer should act, we've got to answer the next question is, why should they act now? This is where a lot of deals stall, and they are stalling more today than ever because this simple question is often not being answered, or not being answered in a way that compels the buyer to move. If we don't compel our buyers to move, they stay where they are. And when they stay where they are, they look at 2 things. What are some other options that we might act with because you have not given us a compelling enough reason to act with you? Or why should we act at all? We'll just sit here and wait. And so inertia takes over. So we've answered why now. The next one is why us? Why should they choose you? Why should they choose the seller's organization? Now, a lot of times, here's what we rock up. I rock up and engage with very sophisticated sellers in the development process. And a lot of them say this to me, you know, Andy, buyers should buy from us because our product or service has this unique feature that only us has, that we think that we've really never validated that. And we've gone and deployed our solution in all of these different industries and areas. And I say, okay, so let's just pause for a sec, put ourselves in the shoes of the buyer right now. Could another company come in and say something really similar in relation to that? And the answer is always yes. And it's like, okay, so a lot of that actually sits in number 4, which is the 4th question. Why should they trust you? They should trust you because you have these great products and services that have done all these things for all these companies in all these areas. So they should trust you. But why us? What I want you to do, the secret hack here for sellers is when we understand why they should act and why they should act now, and we're clear in terms of what their need is and what value looks like, what are the differentiators that are aligned to their need that can help make the decision easy as to why they select us? What are the value differentiators from the buyer's perspective to help set you apart? And then obviously we've got to lead with all of the great substantiation in terms of why they should trust you, which is where you've done things before, you've achieved successful outcomes for other buyers, and you're able to substantiate that. So resonate, differentiate, substantiate are the ingredients of a compelling value proposition. The 4 questions, the simple way to make sure you're building compelling value propositions from a seller standpoint consistently so the buyer can consume it and give them reason to select you and move forward with your solution. When you don't do that, when you miss out on that, it's really clear if the buyers on the right-hand side are saying these things to you. So let's just build out that whole, let's just get the whole image up there, Craig. They're going to say to you, if you don't resonate with me, I don't need what you have. I know some of your sellers will come back to you. For those of you who are sales leaders, you have that situation going, I know they need this so much, but I can't figure out why they won't buy it. They won't buy it because they don't understand why they should act or why they should act now. We've got to go back and answer those questions really strongly if we get the opportunity. If you are having constant price-based objections, or you are deep into negotiations on every single deal, you have a really big challenge with value differentiation in the eyes of the buyer. They are not seeing a clear reason why you are different from others. They will commoditize you or seek to commoditize you very quickly. And you're going to be having a lot of buyers say to you, just give us your best price. They don't see any difference in terms of your offering. They're seeing you as a transactional player that they can align in terms of comparison to others. And they're looking at the only differentiator is price. Now, some do that really well, by the way. It's not always that linear. But really, if that's generally the space you're playing in as a sales leader, when you're hearing things from your sellers, you need to go to work on value differentiation from the buyer's perspective. And last but not least, simple one is if I can't take the risk with you, I don't actually believe you're able to deliver your product or solution, or that your product or solution may not be something that I should trust. So we've got to go to work on building, providing much stronger examples of use cases where you have been able to successfully help other buyers. So a couple of tangible things that I want to throw at you. Some questions. We call it the value self-assessment. Feel free to take a screenshot of this and start thinking about these questions today. These questions will prompt you and they'll help you to be able to bring to life what we just talked about. So do your sellers deliver value in the ways they should in the eyes of the buyer? I think for some of you, that's the penny that's just dropped a few minutes ago, is we are constantly looking about how much more we can sell, how we can fill our pipeline, how we can drive revenue and profit performance from our perspective. My sellers are not thinking through the lens of the buyer and what value might look like for them. That might be the very simple pivot that some of you have taken out of today, and it will be, okay, that simple shift in terms of perspective could have a very powerful effect for your selling organization. So next one, how do your sellers perform across the three areas of the stool? How do your sellers educate the buyers? Remember, we talked about strategic advice. Are they educating them with new ideas and perspectives that the buyer values? And by the way, might help further differentiate you by the way you engage the buyer throughout the buying process. What insights do your sellers provide to buyers? What are insights that your buyers are going to value in this current economy, and the way in which they're trying to either solve problems and or realize objectives today? And how do your sellers help buyers make better decisions? And are your sellers still just selling features and benefits? So I think that's a very simple way, by asking those set of questions, to make sure value is at the forefront of our thinking. The buyer is at the forefront of our thinking, and thinking about new ways we can educate and bring new value to the client is the best way to do that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand that back to you, Craig. Now, I think in terms of how we now take that understanding of value and look at different ways that we can identify whether it's showing up, or ways that if it is showing up, ways in which we can improve it shows up through a different method. And I won't spoil your thunder. You can come and walk us through that now.
Yeah. Let's jump into it. I love the three legs of the value proposition stool. I remember Mike Schultz and John Doerr just hammering it over and over a decade ago, and it's still ingrained in my memory as a marketer. I use that still today, and have been, ever since I learned about it, when I'm thinking about ad copy and landing pages and website, because it is a great framework, and it is so simple to remember. Resonate, differentiate, substantiate. It's been very valuable. So great stuff. So how do we know what messaging is most effective for communicating value? Historically, we've generally relied on anecdotal feedback, which is really valuable. I don't want to take anything away from it, but it does tend to just give you a partial picture, because you're generally only hearing from maybe the louder voices or the more confident voices at the organization, and you're not getting all of the anecdotal feedback. So you don't really get a full picture. And there's also plenty of bias in individuals' perceptions of how content was perceived by the prospects or customers. Modern sales content management platforms will give you much more quantitative data around which content was used in which stages and how is that correlated with CRM outcomes. So this is really valuable, especially for understanding the relative performance of one content versus the other, or this content works really well when they're in research phase, and this works really well when they're in evaluation phase, et cetera. So that has really brought a lot of light to what type of messaging and content moves deals forward. But it doesn't give you the full picture. It's just giving you a limited view about what's actually driving impact. And this is where conversation intelligence comes in to really broaden our understanding of what messaging is resonating and really effectively communicating the value that we're trying to provide. And the way it does that is by reviewing game tape. And this is probably one of the most valuable exercises a revenue team can do, but is so often not prioritized because of, you know, the tyranny of the urgent, as I've heard it described, where we're just always putting out fires and dealing with other urgent things, and we don't take the time to actually listen to all of these sales conversations where there is so much gold. I would even argue most of the challenges we face on our go-to-market teams have answers hidden in our sales conversation data. It's a question of mining it in an effective way. And we're going to talk about some of the new technology that allows us to do that, because there's no better source to understand what is working. When you watch game tape, you can see stuff that you won't find in the data, right? You can see where the buyer is zoned out or losing interest or not focused. You can see where they're smiling or where they get energy or where they're engaged. You can pay attention to the language that they're using when they describe some of the things that you might be talking about. And it's a great opportunity to optimize your messaging in the voice of the prospect and of the customer. And it's really fantastic for sharing mistakes. Not every organization has that type of vulnerability in their culture, but when reps are comfortable sharing their mistakes, so they can get feedback and learn how to handle that better next time and prevent other people from making some of the same mistakes, that's really where knowledge sharing can start getting very, very powerful and helping you optimize your approach and your messaging in your prospect and customer conversations. So if this is so powerful and amazing, why do we struggle with adoption? And that might have been, I might have revealed too much there, but we want to throw a poll up there and see where you all in the audience, where are you in terms of your adoption of conversation intelligence? I've done a few of these now, so I have a feeling I know what the results are going to look like, but I'm always sometimes surprised too. So let's see what we get. What do you think, Andy?
My observation, I'd say from probably about half of our clients have something in place. Maybe I'm
All
right.
right. Let's see.
We'll give it another
Let's
second
see.
here. People are pushing through. All right. Share the results. All right.
Okay, so yeah, 55% say no. A few of those people do have a tool for it, so that's progress. 13% not sure. 26% yes, but not enough. Only 6% said yes, with adoption is great. So there's a lot of opportunity. One of the knocks, and I think one of the reasons why we've seen adoption challenges for conversation intelligence on go-to-market teams is that there's a perception that there's too much data. How the heck can we mine all of it? And who has the time to do that? The back end really came first with conversation intelligence. So it's like, hey, look, we can transcribe all this data across all these different languages and account for accents and give you all of this great transcribed data. But the front end wasn't really there to mine it. Well, now the front end has caught up with the back end. So what if you were able to create kind of like your SportsCenter top 10 for conversation data? And what I mean by that is, let's say you could do a Google search, or what is effectively looking like a Google search, but you're able to just type in, maybe it's an objection, a common objection that you hear on calls, or it's a product feature, or maybe there's a couple competitors that keep coming up in conversations, and you want to hear all the conversation snippets just related to that topic. You can type that term in. The AI will create a highlight reel with just pulling the 15 to 30-second snippets from multiple sales calls and allow you to watch it in one stream. So you're able to hear multiple sellers, multiple examples, different buyers, and keep your finger on the pulse of how your team is messaging across a certain topic. And when you're able to string those together, it creates a lot of efficiency, and you're able to understand pretty quickly, like, okay, this is resonating, this isn't, or half our reps need more training or certification on this. You'll start to pick up on those things, like, oh, wow, we're really not describing this consistently. Or, you'll start to notice those opportunities for improvement, and also use your time most effectively. So the training that you do is helping the largest number of people. Any thoughts on that, Andy? This is pretty cutting edge stuff.
Yeah.
Pretty valuable.
Without trying to promote your fantastic solution there, we are not just looking at this for our own use. We are looking at deploying this with inside partner organizations because of its critical nature. Sellers learn best in either live situation or real play, role play situations, where you can create one or both for them to be able to have moments of observation and reflection. We are seeing huge multiples in terms of return in their development. And so this is not just about you, for those of you who are sales leaders, looking at, well, what are the areas I can see that they need to improve? It's also about the seller being able to look back and very quickly identify areas in which they either miss critical opportunities, ways that they could have improved in terms of question asking, areas to insert value, areas to talk in terms of insight and education. Like, the learning aspects here are phenomenal. And a lot of this, in terms of what Craig's talking about, is live. It's in situ, where you get the opportunity to record actual live meetings. The intelligence that you can pull from this in such a short period of time, from a development perspective, which is where I sit, it is, as I said, it's quite phenomenal. And so obviously all of us know this is the future.
Enabling self-evaluation is huge. I don't know if everyone here has had experience watching themselves on video, but you are your own harshest critic. You will, like, oh, your body posture, your pace, your word choices, you will notice everything when you watch yourself on video. And you can really improve probably faster than just by watching yourself than having like one-on-one time with an experienced sales coach. There's no replacement for one-on-one coaching, but reducing the burden on sales coaches by enabling self-evaluation can be a really quick win.
You might, just being here, Craig, just answer Scott's question in the chat. Is this mostly useful for product or focused solutions versus complex and unique services selling?
Well, I'd like to say that it's probably valuable for both. I think the more complex the product offering, the more you need a tool like this, because it's really hard to create fluency across large, complex B2B solutions. So there tends to be a higher need the more complex the product is. But yeah, I mean, I know that, we sell this product to across industries and, product and solution types.
Yeah, I would definitely say for all. In terms of my understanding, we have clients across all of those areas. We would recommend something like this across all of them. Thanks, Scott.
No.
Thanks for stopping, Craig. Apologies. I don't know. It's 5:30 in the morning where I am, and there are sirens everywhere. They're not coming for me. It sounded like a fire engine, but anyway, apologies.
What did you do last night after that tough loss?
Yeah, I told you not to bring it up. All right, we're recording, so let's keep going. All right. So the next one we want to explore with you, where we think you're going to get maximum value, because I really think from the ones we picked out of the top 10 list, value and collaboration were the two that, as I said, we are seeing sellers who are winning most in this current environment. They are the two things that we're seeing absolutely pop and are really working, particularly for those sellers that are seeking to move deals through the pipeline much quicker than others. So let's have a look at collaborate with the buyer. Now, this is another one where we're going to look at both the high touch and the high tech aspect in terms of collaboration that we can bring to life in fairly simple ways. As I said, everything that we want to bring to you, I hope for those of you, and I know there's a few of you who have been on quite a few of these webinars, is we want to make it consumable, something tangible that you can take away and put into practice inside your selling, your own individual selling work and activities, and for those of you who are leading teams of sellers. So let's have a look at collaborate with the buyer, and I just want to share with you what happens when sellers don't collaborate. And I've purposely pivoted to this because some of you are not convinced in terms of this, right? So when sellers don't collaborate, when their communication is heavily weighted one way, they are going to diminish opportunities with the buyer to build rapport and relationships, because despite what some of us may think, people like people who want to know about them, who want to be involved with them and value their input. They miss the opportunity to discover and solve needs. I think that's fairly standard. I know the next one is something that a lot of us are interested in, and I'm getting quite a few private messages here in terms of the importance of value, and a lot of you resonating with that. Inspiring buyers with new ideas, because sometimes the most powerful new ideas are not the ones that the sellers tell the buyer about, but the ones that the sellers guide the buyers to. Right? Think about that, right? It's not about telling, it's about guiding, something that can often be a result that creates collaboration, right? Collaboration is you will miss out on the opportunity if your sellers aren't collaborating to change buyer perceptions about how to approach their issues, because often buyers think they know what they want to solve a problem, right? And I know all of us know that, but how many times do we turn up? A buyer has got a perception, an opinion, a view, and we know straight up as a professional in our space providing solutions to buyers like this, that what they think they need is exactly the opposite of what we know they need in order to solve their problem. But you're going to have to change buyer perceptions, and you cannot do that by telling them. Keep trying. I can tell you now, if you've got a way of telling someone something and suddenly it changes something, either write a book about it or come and tell the world about it, because we're going contrary to what human behavior does in those situations. So we're going to miss the opportunity to change buyer perceptions. The next one is about gaining momentum and in the engagement threshold, particularly for those of you who are selling virtually, because one-way communications can get really boring and drive people to their email and inboxes and you know, those wonderful newsletter subscriptions. So, and finally, if sellers aren't going to collaborate, they win fewer deals. And I think that's why we're all here, right? Because buyers don't become the psychological owners of the initiative as they might have if the seller involved them more deeply in a collaboration. So it's about psychological ownership. And when a buyer is owning what you are putting out there, the likelihood of you winning goes up significantly. So let's have a look at the different states that we're finding in terms of what we're seeing from sales organizations and what we're seeing from buyers. You know, in terms of sales organizations, we're seeing the current state is they're needing to build deeper and more diverse skills. They need to develop their managers. Their sales leaders are such a critical part and ingredient of sales success that unfortunately a lot of organizations focus too much on the seller in order to improve in order to improve sales output. Actually, it's a combination. It's a team effort. We often forget to develop one of the most critical players, and that's the manager. And then improved productivity is something that we're always being asked to do more with less time. None of us on this call are immune with that. I'm sure, Craig, you're suffering from that, like all of us are. But that's the reality, right? We have to drive efficiencies in our businesses today. Profits aren't just going to suddenly come out of thin air. And so one of the gains that we can make to spend less is to produce more. And so we've got to ramp up sellers and teams faster and make lasting change in terms of their behavior. Now, think about it from the buyer's perspective. Those who a lot of you are selling on that left-hand side, there's uncertainty about future demand. They've got cash flow concerns. They've got budget constraints. Their fear is for less. And the next thing we're seeing in terms of today's buyers is self-serve experiences, decision-making teams, and limited attention spans. And so this is really interesting, right? When you think about how buyers are buying, what they're doing is they're conducting 57 to 70% of their research before contacting your sales reps, or you as a seller, for those of you the individual contributors who we have on today's call. What about decision-making teams? We're seeing buyers involve 11 to 20 individual stakeholders in complex B2B purchases. I know for some of you on this call who we work with, yes, that is absolutely happening right now. We are living that reality as well. It is what it is what buyers are doing. They're just putting more people in the room to make decisions. And they also have a limited attention span, so requiring faster convincing, and their attention spans are dropping. And there you go, you've got an 8-second validation of attention spans in a recent study by Microsoft. So what's the answer here? How do you get all of these people, this increased volume of people engaged with limited attention spans? Well, turning up, showing up, and throwing up ain't going to cut it for those of you anymore. And if you're seeing a decline in your sales performance, go and have a look at how your reps are turning up. And if they're turning up and they're being transactional, which is one of the biggest challenges still that we see in a lot of particularly B2B selling organizations that we're engaged with. It is
Andy, I heard some interesting pushback about dropping attention spans, and I kind of agree with it because I'm a B2B buyer myself. I think the bar for what content I'll engage with has gotten higher, but I'll binge Netflix for 8 hours in a row, on my weekends or whatever. So it's like I can focus if I find the content engaging. But the bar is much higher for the content that I'm willing to actually give the time of day.
But if you're not interacting, why is that? You just look at it in terms of, use Netflix as an example. Why is that you sit there for so long and stay ridiculously focused on that content?
It engage, like I'm interested in it, right? Like it is engaging me. And that's really hard for, I think, B2B sellers to do.
Yeah, it's giving you reward, right? As a human, I engage with something and I'll stay ridiculously focused on it until such point as it stops giving me the reward that I need. So you can imagine that buyers are sitting there, Craig, you've got 20 people sitting at the table, each of them having different needs. And we come in thinking we've done a great analysis of all these different stakeholder needs, and we're going to make them all. And we've got 60 minutes and we just go bang and start talking. And we think we're doing a great job. What are they sitting there and thinking? So let's say they give us 2 minutes of attention span. What happens to the 58 minutes after that? And I'll tell you what happens to it. They're on their computer, or they're on their tablet, or they're on their phone right in front of you. And that's not saying, they're not sitting there saying, hey, Craig, I'm being really polite right now and I'm listening intently to everything you're saying. They're saying I'm so disconnected because I'm getting no reward from what's happening here. So let's just keep going here, because I know we've got a way to be able to solve this. Yeah. I think we've got a way to be able to solve this for a lot of us. So look, 28% of sellers are struggling to get buyers to collaborate. But then when we look at the next one in terms of buyers, 7 out of 10 buyers are saying, come and collaborate with us. Come and partner with us on this journey. Come and show us you are not just trying to sell us something, but you're actually willing to immerse yourself in our world, to join us in solving the problems and or realizing the objectives that we want to. And that's where collaboration is all about. But Today, we're still seeing that it's a struggle to get into offices. Some of you are returning there. Some of your teams are out and about pounding the pavements and clocking up those miles. But a lot of us are still on the screen in the camera, and therefore collaborating online is a critical element to master if we're going to see the outsized returns that collaboration can bring. What are you seeing? What are you seeing on your end, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of B2B buyers don't even want to talk to a seller at all. This Gartner stat blew me away. And I think there's some significant implications, right? We can fight this. We can be pissed about this. You know, we can say, oh, these buyers suck, you know, whatever we want to do. But if buyer behaviors are changing, this trend towards independence for buyers, I think, is something that is not going to go away. Buyers are going to become more and more independent over time. And this is just another one of those moments where sales and methodology is going to adjust. We've seen this happen, you know, from the 80s to the 90s. That, you know, we've had all these differences in methodology and the type of selling that works. And now we're moving towards a new era where it's really about a buying process as opposed to a sales process. The buyer wants to be in control. They want to dictate when they talk to sales. And it's on us, I think, to adjust to that new reality. One of the biggest trends that we're seeing in B2B is really the emergence of the digital sales room. You might see them called deal rooms, virtual deal rooms, things like that. It's effectively a personalized microsite where sellers and buyers are communicating. All the content related to a deal is in one place. It's personalized for each member of the buying team. And it looks something like this. At least this is Allego's version. You're able to add like a greeting at the door, welcome video. You can create that unique for each member of the buying team, right? Because we're all about content with context. So if we're going to be sharing content, let's give that person, depending on their function, their role, the context they need to understand why this is valuable to them, right? So it's kind of like watching the trailer before you watch the Netflix show. Hey, this is why we think you want to pay attention to this content, and, you know, tease some things so that then they're engaged and they want to review the rest of the content that you're sharing. And it also lets you curate the content for each role on the buying team. And this is a lot more efficient and convenient for buyers. If you think about the old way, all this content was being shared over email. So if they wanted to go find something that a seller had shared with them, they got to go search for it or dig through their email. And then this isn't really, yeah, someone can forward that email to other people, but it's not like you're creating this one-stop shop where everybody can get all the deal-related content in one place. So this is really adding a lot of convenience for buyers and is, I think, quickly becoming table stakes. And we'll look at some of the Gartner research and where they think digital sales rooms are going in terms of adoption. It's pretty striking. And sellers are pretty pleased with this deal too. They think, well, oh, the buyer is going to be in control. We're not going to be able to dictate outcomes. Well, actually, what we're seeing is that by letting the buyer be in control, it's reducing friction and actually improving sales outcomes. And one of the ways that sellers are really finding value from these type of microsites is the analytics that they get in terms of when and what content buyers are engaging with. So if someone accesses a PDF from an email you sent them, chances are, I mean, you might be able to set up some tracking, you know, but generally you're not going to know if they shared it, things like that. With digital sales room, you know, every time someone engages with that content, and you also know if someone shares it with other people within the organization. And this helps you strike when the iron is hot. So you're able to time your follow-ups when the buying team is engaged. And that can make a huge difference whether they tune you out or they tune in. And there is asynchronous chat as well. So I know we want to talk about like some of the collaboration features. So the chat really serves as like kind of that collaboration tool for the deal so that other people can learn from the questions that maybe people have already asked. And these were those Gartner stats I was referring to. They think by 2026, 30% of B2B buying interactions will happen on a digital sales room, and 50% of enterprise sales techs in North America will include a DSR digital sales room. So yeah, this is definitely one of the hotter trends in sales technology that we're seeing today.
Yeah, I think that's very much what we're seeing. If you look at what those who are performing really well in this current environment, and you know, who aren't scared of the advent and the massive growth of artificial intelligence and other technologies, is that they're not perhaps at the bleeding edge, but they are very much adopting things like digital sales rooms to as understanding from a buyer's perspective the value that it can bring to them. It can be a central point of repository. It can be an opportunity point online where buyers might want to share or interact without having to jump on a Zoom or a Teams or any other platform, in case there's others on this called Chime, Blue Jeans, whatever it might be. I know someone got annoyed last time that I only mentioned two, WebEx, there you go. So instead of jumping on a platform and having these sorts of conversations, which some of our buyers just simply don't have the time to, gives them the ability to interact and for you to be able to curate that experience for them, and for them to be able to be a part of that and get access to information really quickly. If we look at that self-serve stack that we've talked about before, this not just helps deliver that, the concept of digital sales rooms, we're actually seeing sellers be seen as being much more buyer-focused and partner-led and value-led by doing that, coming back to our topic of value that we explored earlier before. So yeah, like in terms of the use case and the reality of that in the selling cycle, Craig, we are seeing top performing sellers use this really, really, really well.
And I know what some of the individual contributors on this webinar are thinking, oh God, another sales tool. Well, the good news is you can integrate with Allego anyway. You're able to integrate your conversation intelligence tool, your sales content tool, your learning tool, and your digital sales room together with one login under one roof, which really adds a lot of convenience, because if you think about it, the conversation intelligence listens to a call, it hears an objection, it can reference the latest one-pager overcoming that objection, and in one click, through an AI-led content recommendation, it'll add that one-pager into the DSR for that deal. So there's a lot of synergy and convenience for sellers when you see these pieces working together in an integrated fashion. That's really where the magic happens.
As I said at the top end, it's high tech, high touch. You've got to, it's the sellers today, it's a combination of both. It is never one or the other. If you over index too much on the tech, you will lose the human aspect. If you don't have it, you don't get all of the multiplying benefits within either you as a seller or your selling organization. And then you've got to have the skills, and you've got to have the ability to be able to do things in person. And this is the I would actually call it the ultra modern seller, because we're not seeing all selling organizations master the right balance of this right at this moment. Hence why we're here to share our insights and observations. Why don't we? There's a couple of things. So let's actually get the poll up, because I know I just saw some Ronit and a couple of others have put some stuff in the chat. We're definitely not talking about actually getting in front of the buyer in this or the prospect in this webinar today, but we might. So when we think back to the 10, we've really covered 2 in detail. Focus on value and collaborate. What are the other areas that you're most interested in learning about that we can get some value together on our end and share it with you in future webinars? So is it about growing existing accounts? To run its question, is it about targeting? Is it about actually making that breakthrough in this current environment and being able to get a connection point with prospects, those buyers that you want to talk to? By the way, I'm not sure, Ronit and others, what your kind of selling motions are, but I'd ask 2 questions. I'd have a look at, if you're doing some research on the prospects you're trying to engage with, before you reach out, what might be their role in the buying team, and what do they care about, right? And target your messages to the person and their role in the buying team, or what role they might be playing, and really put yourself in their shoes. What do they care about, and target your messages to that. So let's have a look. We've got customizing your outreach, making a strong impact case, being flexible, starting small, building a strong case for change, and developing multiple champions. All right, so we've got, there you go, prospecting. And Craig, what's the other one? There's a tie here really between growing existing accounts, making a strong impact case, and building a strong case for change. All right, maybe we can combine a few of those into it, but we can, it seems like prospecting is definitely still.
Looks like we got to do 5 more webinars, Andy.
And why not? Why not? It's
good diversity.
All right, well, I'll hand it back to going back to Marcus, and then we're going to do a Q&A.
Yeah. So we do have a digital sales room for everybody here. We'll be adding the recording of this webinar into that digital sales room probably by tomorrow morning, maybe tonight, depending on how quickly everything processes and we get it in there. But we did want everyone to be able to kind of feel out these digital sales rooms for themselves. And Marcus, I think you have some information on some of the great content that Rain Group has put in there around value, right?
Yeah, you kind of stole my thunder there a little bit.
My bad.
No worries. So we talked a lot about value today, and Rain Group did provide a couple learning modules within this digital room as a free resource. We also have some other videos in there that you might be interested, a couple past webinars as well. So feel free to check that out. I've added it into the chat, and you can also take out your phone and snap that QR code. It'll go right to the DSR. And feel free to engage how you like. So let's go to a couple questions here. Let's see. Yeah, did you answer the one about the reach rate on by phone? Did we get that one knocked out? There's a drop in reach rate for sellers.
Harder to get prospects on the phones.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't want to quote sources I'm not up to date on right at this moment, but I know I'd like to see what our clients' reach rates are in terms of reach rates and drop-offs. Yeah, I'll take that one on notice. Let me come back to you on that one.
Okay. Yeah, we can always reach out.
I know we're seeing phone actually be a medium that's coming back in terms of its success, because so many sellers are trying to sell online and focusing too much or over-indexing on engaging digitally rather than through voice. But yeah, that's why I don't want to quote. I actually think you'll find that the trend in terms of engaging buyers on phone is increasing, funnily enough.
And we just had one come in from Matt. Craig, this one probably for you.
Greta's finding the same thing. Yeah.
Is anyone using this tech for implementing communication?
I'm not really, I don't understand the question totally, what implementing communication means. So they can provide some more context, maybe.
Okay.
Sorry.
And we can follow up as well.
Yeah, we can follow up with Matt, certainly. Yeah. If anyone has any questions, that they want to keep this conversation going, please connect with Andy and I on LinkedIn, and either of us would be thrilled to continue the conversation there and learn more about your needs.
Yep. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Just as a reminder, you can check out that DSR. The link is attached here, and there is a 3-question survey at the end as soon as you close. So feel free to complete that so we can get a better idea of more webinars in the future. And a special thanks to Andy and Craig. Really appreciate it today, guys. Great info. And thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Craig.
Thanks, everyone. Angela, I see your question. We'll follow up with you. Thanks, Andy. This was great. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
All right. Bye.